Yes, this is gonna be one heck of a good sandwich. I mean, I love a good sandwich, and especially I love sort of the Italian sub thing. And this sandwich, I wanted to change it up a bit with the way I'm building it and some of the ingredients and how they're prepared, but it is really good. And it starts with a homemade bun, a homemade baguette. Now, this step you can completely skip. Buy a baguette, buy a bun, anything you want, just use the filler ingredients to make it. But today I'm gonna show you how I make baguettes. So I have my stand mixer out here. You could totally do this by hand, but it's so much harder. And as I said in a previous video, if you really wanna get into baking, some sort of stand mixer really does help. It allows you to move things much more quickly and have a really consistent product. So first ingredient is 2.5 cups of flour. Now you can use all-purpose flour. I'm using a bread flour here. Next up, 1.5 teaspoons of instant yeast, 2 teaspoons of kosher salt. Now before we add our water to this, we're gonna add what's called a Poolish. Now a Poolish is what you call a pre-ferment, where you get the fermentation going before you actually start making the dough, using a portion of the flour, some of the yeast, and a little bit of water. And this is what it comes out looking like. Just sort of a craggy, half-dry mass of dough. Now I put this Poolish together about 12 hours ago. I used 1.25 cups of that bread flour, 1/8 of a teaspoon of instant yeast, and 2/3 of a cup of water. And this is cool water we're using today. So basically just sort of your cold tap water. And hopefully you can see here, when I started the Poolish, it was here, and the rise has taken it about here. Not doubled, maybe about 1/3 or 2/3 larger than it was. And we're gonna go ahead and add this Poolish to our mixer. Next up, 2/3 of a cup of water. Now we may have to add to this if this seems a little bit dry. Also may have to add a little bit of flour if it seems a little too wet. This is sort of that adjustment phase when you're starting to put this together. Get my bowl up. And I'm just gonna mix this for, I don't know, 30 seconds to a minute or so until it comes together. It's not gonna be a fully formed dough yet. And I'm gonna do this on speed level 2. We're not going super high today. Scrape our sides down here real quick. And I can tell it's just a little bit dry, so I'm gonna add maybe a teaspoon or 2 of water. So you can see there, it's still very shaggy dough. There's even some flour that's dry near the bottom, and that's okay, because what we're gonna do right now is we're gonna let this rest for about 25-30 minutes. We're just gonna wrap a towel around the top here, and this is just gonna give it a little bit of a chance to absorb a little bit of that moisture before we get into the real kneading process here. See you back here in about 25 minutes. All right, we've been resting 25 minutes. We're gonna take our cloth off here, and we're gonna get into the kneading process. So we're gonna knead this now for about 4 to 5 minutes until we get that sort of consistency of a dough ball that we want. I'm gonna go on speed level 2. This isn't a high speed thing we need to do here. All right, I'm gonna get this dough out of here into a bowl that's sprayed lightly with some olive oil. You can use any sort of oil you want, because it's gotta rise for about 2 hours now. So let me get this out of here. So I'm just gonna hit this bowl with a little bit of olive oil. I'm gonna wipe it around. This just helps prevent the dough from sticking during the rise. We're gonna get our dough ball in here, and you can see it's not a smooth formed ball of dough like some bread recipes call for. Right now, this is just for rising. Remember, baguettes are a little bit more rustic. I'm gonna roll this over in here so we coat all the sides with some of that oil. All right, we're gonna cover this tightly, and then we're gonna let this rise for 2 hours. After about an hour, I'm gonna come back and give it a couple folds to help develop some of that gluten, some of that structure. And at the end of that 2-hour total rise time, we're gonna start forming our baguettes and give it a little more rise time. That's bread baking for you. That's how it works. You gotta let the dough have time to rise, sometimes in multiple stages. I'll see you back here in about an hour when we do those folds. So we've been going an hour now. As you can see, our dough has started to rise. It hasn't gone up the full amount yet, but we're gonna go ahead and uncover this quickly, and then we're gonna do a few folds in it. and get it covered back up and let it finish its rise. So first thing I want to do is deflate this just by pressing it down. Then I'm going to pick up one side, fold it over. I'm going to rotate that, pick up that side, fold it over, pick up that side, fold it over, pick up that side, fold it over. We're just going to turn this over and we're going to cover this back up and let it go for another hour. See you back here in about an hour. So our dough has been rising for a total of 2 hours now. Let's get our cover off here, take a look, and we're going to divide this into 3 roughly equal portions because we're going to be making 3 baguettes here today. I'm only going to use one of them for sandwich, but never bad to have extra. That is looking good. So what I'm going to do now is weigh this so I can divide it into those 3 roughly equal parts. So I'm just going to get my dough out of here. It should lift out fairly easily. So I've got my scale here. I'm just going to put that plastic wrap that we've been using over it. So we've got 876 grams here, which divided by 3 is going to be 292. So yeah, 290-ish grams for each one of our pieces that we're going to make into baguettes. So let's go ahead and divide these up. We'll see how we do on that first pass there. That's 286, 87. That's close enough for me. That's the first one there. Let's see how this one is. That's 247, a little light. 270, 284, 294, close enough. So I've got my 3 pieces here and I'm just going to form them into rough log shapes. This is not going to be their final shape. And really with the amount of oil that was on these, don't need to add any flour or anything. You might need to add a little bit of oil to your countertop or whatever you're working on. Now I'm just going to cover these up and they're going to rest and just sort of relax for 20 minutes. Just using that same plastic wrap to cover them up. And we'll come back in 20 minutes and we'll form these into their roughly final shape. So our roughly shaped logs have been just resting here for 20 minutes and you can see they've risen a little bit, not a lot. They still have one more rise to go through after we get them in their final pre-baked shape. So I'm just going to take one of these here, set the others aside, and I want to roll it out into a roughly 13-inch sort of torpedo shape here. And baguettes a lot of times have those pointy ends. If you don't want to put that on there, that's fine. This is going to be, that's roughly 13 inches right there. Then I'm going to set this aside in the actual rack it's going to bake in and do the other 2. And I'll let you see these when they're all in that rack together. And we're looking for that about 13 inches, roughly the same diameter throughout. A little bit longer here. That's good. Last one. That's roughly it, maybe a little long, that's okay. And so I'm going to be baking these in this sort of baguette pan here. You don't have to use one of these. What really works well is sort of like a pizza stone or a pizza steel in the oven that gets heated up. I tend to like it this way. I know a lot of people talk about getting that really crispy crust using a stone. You get a pretty good crust using this too, and it is just a really convenient way to do this. Now I'm going to go ahead and cover this up again with our plastic wrap and then a towel over this. We're going to let this rise for 40 minutes before we bake it. And after about 20 minutes of that rise, you're going to want to set your oven to preheat to 475 degrees. And what you want to do, at least the way I do it, is I've got a 9-inch pan in there with about 1 inch of water in it. That's going to help generate some moisture and some steam in there when this oven gets going. Other ways you can do that is you can put like a cast iron pan in there and let that heat up, and as soon as you put the baguettes in, pour water into that hot water, create steam and close the door, because baguettes like some steam, some moisture at that first part of the cook. Also, after about 10 minutes in the oven at 475 degrees, I'll remove the water pan because it doesn't need moisture throughout the whole cook. And I sprayed a little more olive oil on this sheet just to keep it from sticking too much. Then our towel. And I'll see you back here in 40 minutes. All right, our baguettes have had that final 40-minute rise in the tray. Our oven is preheated to 475 degrees with that pan of water in there. Let's take a look at our baguettes, and we have to score the top of them. That's sort of traditional, but it also helps prevent the top from splitting in ways that you don't want. But in all honesty, if you don't score them or you score them the wrong way, they're still going to be great. These are looking good, and now we're going to score these, and what I'm using is called a lame or a lame or a lame. It's basically a razor blade on a little stick. You can also use a serrated knife, a sharp one, and we're just going to do 3, maybe 4 slices here that are at a sort of 45-degree angle. Not just 45 this way, but at a slight angle this way too, so you're not cutting straight down. And you just want to do it quickly. You don't need to spend a lot of time on it, and you don't want the dough to get sticky on the blade. So we're just going to go ahead and slash these. That'll work fine. And just so you know, I think I've said this in previous videos, I'm not some expert baker. I'm just a home cook. And if I can make these and make those slashes like this, so can you. This is just a really fun recipe to be able to make your own bread for sandwiches or for anything. So our oven's preheated. Let's go ahead and get our baguettes in there. They're gonna go for approximately 20 minutes. Every oven is different. You're really looking for that sort of crusty golden brown look on the outside. And if you want to check internal temperature on these, you actually can. Somewhere between 205 and 210 degrees internal is going to be basically done. But really look for that outside color that you all know like a baguette looks like. So roughly 20 minutes, every oven is different. You just learn your own. So I'll see you back here when our baguettes are done and we can start getting the rest of the ingredients ready for this chopped Italian sandwich. Here are our baguettes. They are done. They are beautiful, nice color on them. You can pick them up. They're nice and warm still, but I want to let these cool down completely. So they're going to go probably 45 minutes to an hour before I pick one of these and start using it to make our sandwich. And to cool, I'm going to put these on a wire rack on a baking sheet. And in a little while, we'll start getting the rest of our sandwich ingredients ready. So our bread has been cooling. It probably has another 10 or 15 minutes to go. So I want to start getting the ingredients ready for this sandwich. First up is some fresh mozzarella. And I'm going to cut these into rounds because we're going to put these on the sandwich. It's just going to be fantastic. Next up, sun-dried tomatoes that are marinated in oil. I'm going to use, I don't know, maybe a 1/4 cup here, maybe a little more. Just going to take some out of this with the oil already on them. Just leave it there. And I'm using my white synthetic cutting board here to make cleanup easier after this part. To this, I'm going to add about a dozen fresh basil leaves. And we are just going to go to town and chop this all up together. You can do it any way you want. You can roll the basil leaves up first. I'm not going to bother with it. This is a very rustic sort of spread we're going to make here. Just like that. I'm going to get these in a bowl. I'm going to move this cutting board out of here and we're going to move on to our artichoke heart spread. So for this artichoke heart spread that we're going to use on here, I'm just using my small little food processor attachment. And I'm going to put maybe 3/4 of a cup, maybe a cup of marinated artichoke hearts in here. They still have some of the oil on them and I want that. I'm also going to add just a splash of balsamic vinegar, maybe, I don't know, 1/2 teaspoon or so. About a teaspoon of minced garlic. And a good pinch of kosher salt. Now I'm going to process this till it's all incorporated, not smooth. I want some little chunks in there. This is exactly what I'm looking for here. Sort of a very, very rustic chop on that. Let's take a little taste. The addition of just that little bit of balsamic really adds another layer of flavor in here, really nice. All right, let's get our meats out here, get those chopped up. So the meat for our chopped Italian sandwich is on my board here. I have salami, I believe it's a calabrese salami. We have some capicola and some prosciutto. This is really simple how we're going to do this. We're going to stack all these things together, just pile them on here, and we're going to chop them. We're not going to dice them. We're going to get them into almost like slivers that are not too long. Just take your time. The prosciutto can be a little difficult, but you can get through it. And then if you break it apart, you can kind of see what we're going for here. These pieces kind of like this. And it doesn't matter if some of them are still stuck together or stacked. We're just going to be sprinkling this all over our bread. That's why it's a chopped Italian sandwich. Just kind of toss around. If there are any big pieces, you can go ahead and break those apart if the knife didn't get all the way through, because these are some fatty meats and that will stick together sometimes. But that's what I'm looking for. Now let's go ahead and get our bread ready. So this is the baguette that I'm going to use. Now after I cut it, I'm going to toast it up on my griddle on my stove, and I'm not going to use the whole thing. This is going to be a full-on sub sandwich. I'll probably go about half here, maybe a little more than half. Oh, that looks good. And I just want to point out there is a non-0% chance that I took a taste of one of the other baguettes when it was still warm with some butter on it, and if I did, it was fantastic. So I'm just going to go ahead, cut right here. Just want to get a little butter on here just for the toasting purposes, not a lot. I'm going to step over to the stove real quick, toast these up. I'll be back here in a minute. So at this point with the ingredients I have, I mean, you could build this any way you want. I'm going to start with some of that artichoke heart spread on the bottom here. You can see just got a nice light toast on the bun. Just want to give this a good coating here. And I want to put a few pieces of lettuce here. This is from a spring mix. Next up, some of those mozzarella slices. And these are some nice beefy mozz slices, which is what I want in this sandwich. Now some of our chopped meat on here. And we're not going to be shy, we're going to pile this on. Next I want to get a little bit of that sun-dried tomato basil topping on here. If anything falls, don't worry about it. We'll get it back on here. Finally, I just have some thinly sliced red onions. I like red onions on sandwich. Not a lot here because we got a lot of flavor going on. Finally, we're going to top this. There we have it, the chopped Italian sandwich on a homemade baguette. Looking fantastic. I'm going to dive in. So just to make this a little easier to eat, I'm actually going to cut this right here. Here I go, diving in. Oh man, that's good. Let me just say, you may not think that chopping these things up really has an effect. It does. There's so much surface area, so much flavor in here that's mixed up because we made those spreads out of the artichoke hearts and the sun-dried tomatoes and basil, chopped up meat right on that mozzarella. This is fantastic. Only thing I would change is I'd make a second one right away.